This one, gearing. Oh, I actually wanted to see this. I saw this come up yesterday, and I do actually want to watch this video.
There's a weird irony that only yesterday we posted a video saying how different things affects people very differently in World of Warcraft because we all play it differently. Yeah. And today's no different. We need to look at how you're going to gear your character in the Shadowlands. Before we jump into this, we need to understand where a lot of the changes you're about to hear are stemming from, and they're mainly stemming from the Weekly Vault. The Weekly Vault is a new addition to the game in the Shadowlands, and it is really, really good. It is leaps and bounds above BFA, and it's one of the best things I've seen so far. What is the Weekly?
So wait, so you have to unlock each of the gray things. Can somebody answer this for me? Because I don't know. Can you get 3 different items per week, or do you only get 1? You only get 1 item.
Vault. Well, if you've been living under a rock, you won't know about it, but essentially, instead of getting that weekly chest that you get right now in BFA, and just as you did in Legion, based on the entirety of the Mythic Plus you did last week, you get 1 item.
All right.
That's it. You open it up and you close your eyes and you hope to God it's got that thing in it that you really want and not something that's utterly useless.
That would be good.
And usually we're left with disappointment on our faces.
Oh, shit.
Well, they're looking to change that in the Shadowlands, and what they're going to do is give you choices, up to 9.
That's good.
So if you do absolutely everything, of high-level PvP, lots of Mythic Plus, and Raid, when you open your weekly chest, you will have a potential 9 choices of items to choose 1 from. And that's the important thing, because people still get that wrong. You can only take home 1 item, but this time you'll have a choice. And we had it confirmed yesterday, there'll be no duplicates. That means that you can have boots, chest, shoulders, bracers, trinkets, weapons, up to 9 different things, and you can say, I want that one.
I think what Ian meant by that, though, I do think it's a small clarification. I don't think they're making it in terms of duplicates, like in regards to like you can't get 2 pairs of shoulders. I think it's that you can't get 2 pairs of the same shoulders. I feel like that's actually what they're going for with this, which actually kind of does make more sense. No shit. Well, the way Preach said it made me think that it could be either one. And so I just wanted to clarify kind of what I'm expecting it's going to be. Also on top of this, I do think it's a great change. I think having 9 items to choose from potentially is great. And I think that the more that you play the game, the more items that you have to choose from is a great system. And also because you're only being able to pick out 1, it's not going to just like artificially increase the gear acquisition and you're done with gearing in like 3 weeks and then that's it, which is definitely an improvement, man. I like it a lot. I'm very fucking happy about this, and it's a massive improvement over what we had happen. Yeah, this is much better than what we had in BFA, and it's kind of actually what we had in BFA though. Now that you think about it, because in BFA we have 2 chests, right? We have the chest from PvP and we have the chest from Mythic Plus. But now we effectively have 3 different chests, and we can pick from 3 different items based off of how often we do them. No? Not really. I don't know, like obviously it's an abstract similarity, so people might not really understand what I'm saying here, but what I'm saying is that BFA had the same system in which you participate in content and then you're rewarded based off of the content that you participate in. Well, they're taking this obviously 10 steps further in Shadowlands, but BFA was more so like that than Legion. That's the point that I'm making.
Now, this is slightly in conflict with Blizzard's philosophy going into the Shadowlands, which is let gear be gear, and let's move away from what Blizzard has been doing for like the last 10 years, which is increasing quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Certainly with the release of Classic, people have remembered exactly what it was like to see that Ash Candy, to see that Dark Edge of Insanity, and to see that Judgment Helm, all these items that people crave.
It's actually really funny because all 3 of those items were items that McConnell got cucked out of. It's really funny that he just decided to go with the list of 3, man. Like, it's just funny.
And they love and they care about it and complete their sets and they feel awesome about it.
Yeah.
In a game that has been gradually increasing, showering with loot and then leading them down this RNG generation of Titan Forging, Corruption, gem slots and tertiaries that we've been seeing, it's hard to make that really, really good item. What Blizzard was hoping for is that there would be so much RNG that you would eventually get the perfect item, and that's what you would be excited about. But it hasn't really worked out that way for the huge amount of the player base. so they're reining it in. In Shadowlands, there's going to be significantly less loot available, but hopefully that means the quality and intrigue into those items will raise alongside it. Now, that's up to Blizzard to design intriguing and interesting items, and so far, not really seen that, but we'll hope and pray that that's the plan going forward. Now, how are they going
I think that the items need to be more interesting in general. Like, that's the issue to me. It's like the items are just fucking boring most of the time. You have the item, it's like, okay, it's got haste or mastery or crit or versatility. Like, that's basically it. Like, I compare that. Like, look at fucking PoE gearing. So, this could be even better, by the way. Look at all of those different stats that weapon gives you. Socketed gems are supported by a cast while chanting. Socketed gems deal 20% more damage. Socketed gems do this. More critical strike chance for spells, more cast speed, 20% increased cast speed if you killed recently, 20% increased attack speed, and it has its base damage, and it also has the implicit modifier of global critical strike chance. Like, that is what I am about, man. I love this. I know, obviously, guys, people say it's too much. I don't think it is. I like it like that, okay? I get you guys might disagree, but I like having complicated gear because I find it more interesting. Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome.
About that. Less drops from raid bosses and significantly less loot from Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus will now only award one item in the chest for completing that Mythic Plus. That means that a lot of things are going away in the Shadowlands, such as teaming up with people who have the same armor type so you can gear a character very, very quickly to a very decent item level. That's
not going away, Preach. I will still find a way to do it. Like, yeah, I will still find a fucking way to do it. Now, if they're... Let me actually... I'll let Preach finish, and then I'll talk about it.
Going away, stacking people in order to get their own reward is very, very much a lower chance. But the side effect of that, of course, is those guys who only have time for 1 or 2 Mythic Pluses per week now only have a 20% chance of actually getting an item at the end of that run, and that run feeling like an utter waste of time. Of course, there might be some trading and things going on, but generally speaking, when you enter a dungeon, you have a 20% chance now of getting something to even drop for you. That's just the nature of how it's going to be instead of the 2 or 3 items that we currently have in BFA.
Well, wait a minute. So you still get an item. So like right now the system is there are 2 items that drop from the chest and you get a 3rd item if you complete it in the timer. So is Shadowlands going to have 1 item and it doesn't matter if you complete it in the timer, or is it going to have 1 item if you complete it and 1 item if you complete it in the timer for 2 items total? Only 1 total. Mythic Plus is fucking dead. Who the fuck is gonna do that? Oh my god, what a waste of time. No fucking way. Like, oh my god, that's so good. I'm so glad about that. I've never liked Mythic Plus. I've always thought it was fucking boring. It was better in Legion. It sucks in BFA. I just, like, running the same dungeon over and over and over and over again to like fucking get the right trash packs in the right way. It's just so boring. And before you tell me, oh, it's because you're bad, I love doing high level arena and I hate doing high level Mythic Plus. So if I'm gonna get carried in both of them, why do I like one and not the other? Doesn't make any fucking sense. Shut up. Stop trying to rationalize your shitty fucking system and trying to make excuses for why it's not fun. Yeah, that's not it at all. Boosted in arena? Yeah, but logically you could say I was getting boosted in Mythic Plus too. Yeah, don't you see how stupid that logic is? Don't you see that? It's so dumb. Just stupid. You can't get boosted in. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, Jesus, guys. It's crazy. Yeah, logically, this makes no sense. Anyway, I'm glad about this, though. I think that they should try to tone down Mythic Plus gearing and make raiding more incentivized. I think raiding is much more important, and it should be a higher value than it is now.
Now, that should be offset. That should be offset by the weekly vault, which allows you to have more choices. So essentially, they're turning Mythic Plus into just a weekly chest generator. That's all it is. So, in that vein, they decided that a good idea would be to reduce the max item level reward that you can get from the end of a dungeon to 3 item levels below heroic. And there's some more twists in here as well before you go crazy. So, the first thing is, the weekly cutoff right now is actually going to be Mythic 14.
Oh wait, I just saw this. I read the I just read the first comment on accident. Don't have to worry about players getting declined from Mythic Plus for their covenants if no one's doing Mythic Plus to begin with. Hey! Problem solved. These guys are smart. Man, he got some big brains over at Blizzard.
Terms of the weekly vaults. If you want that mythic quality item, that mythic raid quality item, and do note they are repeating what they did in Nyalotha, in that in Castle Nathria, the new Shadowlands raid, the first 8 bosses will be of a mythic item level, and then the last 2 bosses will have a slightly higher item level, which is outside of the weekly vault and mythic plus grinding purview. So once you complete your mythic plus 14, at the end of the week in your weekly vault, you will have at least 1 item which is up to the same item level standard as those first 8 bosses in Castle Nathria, exactly the same is now in Nyalotha. Now then, if you do Mythic plus 15, this will raise the end of dungeon reward to the next stage. So between Mythic plus 12 and 14, you will get to the normal gear level.
Yeah.
And then once you get to Mythic 15, you will have the highest possible reward. But if you're just looking to get your weekly chest, you only need to do Mythic 14.
So we're doing Mythic 14.
Why have they dropped it to 3 levels below Heroic? And what are the impacts of this on a number of players? Well,
I'm glad that they're doing that. I want to say that right now before Preach says anything. I'm very glad about that. Normal on 15. Yeah, basically that's what I like. I'm very happy about this. I think that they're changing, and the gearing changes they're making in Shadowlands will probably make the game... will it make the game better? It's very hard for me to say, but I'm glad that they're at least trying different things. Like, this is the silver lining around the Covenants, is that, yes, I think that Blizzard is making a dumb decision with Covenants, but I can respect the fact that they're at least trying to do something different. And I think that they're trying to do something different in Shadowlands. I think Blizzard, this is their, like, Shadowlands is their come to Jesus expansion, okay? They have to understand that there's going to be a lot of people, they've never released 2 bad expansions in a row. They've never done that. It's always been a good one, then a bad one, a good one, then a bad one. So we should be due for a good one. Now, we'll see, but I do think that they're really trying to just kind of say, you know what? The game has been out for 15 years. Let's just fucking switch some shit up. Let's see what happens. And I can at least respect the idea, even if I think that it's a mistake. Does that make sense? A lot of people hated pandas and WoD. Most people hated Mists of Pandaria for the pandas. Yeah, sure. At least a lot of people hated Mists of Pandaria for the pandas. But what you can't say is that they didn't like the gameplay. At least for many people. I think that a lot of people really liked the gameplay in Mists of Pandaria, regardless of if they liked the, what do you call it? The actual, the theme. That's how I felt. I love the gameplay. I hated the theme.
Depends. Firstly, it's pretty clear that the intention behind this change is to stop gear trading, especially in the early weeks of brand new raid content, new season coming out. It's very intentional that it's 3, just 3, which is a very minor difference below heroic item level, to stop people farming M+ and then being able to trade loot inside the heroic raid.
That's a stupid thing for them to do, because everybody knows that any good guild just does it in raids, because they have like 8 different alts and they just run split raids the entire heroic week. So if Blizzard is doing that, they just made it worse by nerfing Mythic Plus. I feel like most people aren't going to do it. There's a certain point where like the reward is so small that it's not worth doing. Yeah, I don't know, man. And profession gear, well, I think why is that a bad thing? The loot trading, I don't really like loot trading. To me, if you have personal loot, I think you need to have loot trading. And if you don't have personal loot, then you don't need loot trading. But because you can just like master loot or group loot or whatever. But if you have that, you need to have it. And 0.5% of the guilds, I do really hope they're not making decisions based off of fucking the top 50 guilds. Like, that is the worst thing that Blizzard could possibly do, is take the top 50 or top 100 or top 300, whatever you want to say, right? Top 10 guilds or whatever, and make a decision for the game and design the game around throttling their gameplay and throttling the way they play the game, because it's just going to end up hurting everybody. Why
do they want to stop that? I don't know. But they clearly have an issue with it. Similar to why personal loot was introduced in the first place. And the likelihood is they just want to slow down players' progress. Now, of course, this is only really a problem for the first couple of weeks if you're the kind of guild that has players, and if you're a heroic and up, and you have players who are available during the day, and they like to go out and do some Mythic Plus, and those players in your team who have to work all day and then come back and rush into the raid, is that you were able to trade your loot with them, and therefore the whole team got stronger. Something I particularly enjoyed was that rush to get gear. Mythic Plus, unfortunately, in terms of character progress,
I've always liked that too.
Previously in BFA, if you were a Mythic Raider, had a very short lifespan, because the likelihood is if once you started Mythic raiding, you would replace all that gear significantly, and therefore Mythic Plus held not much value for you outside of extremely random Titan Forges and things like that. That is now going to extend to heroic raiders as well, and I wonder what the bite back will be to Blizzard once the heroic raiders realize that Mythic Plus now no longer, because there's no Titan Forging, there's no corruption or anything like that, that Mythic Plus in terms of gearing and filling out those slots has way less value now than just heroic raiding. It doesn't have no value.
Well, it's going to make them happier about raiding. It's going to make raiding matter more. I think that's really what it is. It's going to make raiding matter a lot more. I like that. I think that's a good thing. I'm a big fan of that. And I'd rather not waste my time doing the same dungeon. Yeah, I think raiding should matter more. And also what's going to happen here is there's like a ripple effect that's going to come out of this, because you're going to have a lot of people who will, they will originally start, they'll start doing like, let's say raiding, and then they won't get the gear. They'll do like one Mythic Plus, and the Mythic Plus drops a helmet, and there's like fucking 45 different items in the loot table. Guess what doesn't drop? The fucking helmet. So the helmet doesn't drop. They finish the group, and you know what they do after that? They think to themselves, fuck, maybe I should just craft something with a profession. So the reason why profession gear and stuff like that is valuable in Classic and Burning Crusade is because there is a scarcity of gear in general. So the problem and why profession gear and stuff like that became less relevant is because there was so much gear added into the game that the profession gear was a then marginal upgrade, and it wasn't worth the time investment. So like, for example, if there was another helmet in Molten Core, or another helmet that was just like you were able to buy with badges in Vanilla WoW or something like that, or honor points in Vanilla WoW, that was almost as good as the Lionheart helm, well then you'd have a lot less people wanting to craft the Lionheart helm, and it wouldn't matter as much. But the reason why those profession items mattered so much is because exactly for the reason that they were valuable, because they were rare. There was loot scarcity in general. It's like you see people get items in Classic. That's why you have like these viewers that mauled out over a streamer getting an item. Like that never happens in retail. Nobody gives a fuck. Because everybody knows it's like, yeah, 8 more of these swords are going to drop next week. Who cares? It's like, yeah, he gets it this week, whatever. He's a GM, who gives a fuck? But you see like these Classic Andes, and they'll be furious. Like, S-Fan has to fucking defend himself every day for why he has Thunder Fury. Why is that? Because people are fucking pissed off because it never drops for them. Nobody gives a shit about Mythic Devastation's Hour from Mythic N'Zoth. There's like 50 million of them. Who cares? That's the whole point. I think that having more loot scarcity is a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Value. So it should be clear. It's 3 item levels lower. It's not useless by any means.
No, it's not.
For most players, after the first initial month, things are going to be as they are in BFA for the most part. If you're somebody who pushed high keys, you were used to the idea that you had to like Mythic Raid in order to do that in the first place. Now, who really gets hurt by this? Those players who love Mythic Plus and were hoping and praying that Blizzard would go into a full progression path down the Mythic Plus route. Now, technically, that does exist, and it's actually better than it is in BFA. And that comes back to the weekly vault. If you are somebody who exclusively plays Mythic Plus, you are still bound by the rules of BFA of waiting for your weekly chest in order to get the big bump. It's not going to occur inside of Mythic Plus itself.
That's actually a really good point, and I totally agree with this. Because basically, even if you cared all about you only get one item, it doesn't matter though. Because the items that you would get out of the end of dungeon rewards in Mythic Plus were only relevant for the first month of the season. Everything after that, the only real upgrades you'd be getting, realistically, are from the chest. because you had 465s in every slot. Like, how many of you guys run Mythic Plus for upgrades right now? Nobody does that. Nobody gives a fuck because it doesn't matter. You only do it for your weekly chest. So it actually is better for long-term progression for Mythic Plus raiders, this system, because it gives them 3 separate options to choose from instead of the one option that they're locked into right now. Peach is right.
That still remains. But this time around, with the selection process, you should get much better items and more of them than you would in BFA. Because if you're doing, say, 10 or 15 Mythic Pluses a week at a high level, because that's the content you enjoy, you will now get 3 choices of items from that weekly cache, instead of doing what we do in BFA, which is just get hope and pray for the one. The sad news is, though, and I do agree with the guys, and I've spoken, I talk a lot with the Mythic Pluses. We had the Dungeon Round Table just not long ago with very high Mythic Pluses, is there are several of them who do not want to raid. They don't enjoy raiding. They do it because they have to in order to get the gear to do the content they enjoy, and they don't want that. They would like Mythic Plus to be a sectioned offset part of the game where if they are good quality players and they are doing 20s and 20 plus, then they should be rewarded appropriately for that at the same rate that Mythic raiding rewards. Unquestionably, if you are a Mythic raider, you move up those item level ladders considerably quicker than you do by waiting for your weekly cache to report every single item slot.
The thing is, like, JB was also a fan of like having all of the gear like set to one standard in Mythic Plus. Like, there's a lot of people who are extremely competitive in the game, and it's important that Blizzard doesn't listen to what they want to do, because that would make the game worse. And I think he knows that. Like, we talked about that, right? And I understand where he's coming from, sure. But the thing is that creating these ecosystems inside of the game that are completely self-contained is not good for the game. And what that's ended up happening, what's that ended up causing, is all of these different ecosystems competing against each other. And because they were competing against each other, people would only do the one that gives the best rewards, and they would ignore the other ones. So I think this is very important. Raiding is self-contained. You could say that about Mythic Plus, though. Like, how is raiding self-contained? Like, and Mythic Plus isn't. Like, logically, what is the sense in that? So you get random items from the bosses versus you get random items from the chest. Like, I don't know. It's the same exact thing to me. Yeah, I'm sorry. Pushing keys should give cosmetics amounts. Yeah, I think with keys, they need to give it cosmetics or something like that. If they had a higher tier of gear reward for like doing a plus 20, I'd probably be okay with that, though. I'd be okay one way or another.
With really good stats all the time, especially when you can trade amongst 20 people rather than the 5 in your group. That is something that I'm sad is gone. Now, don't be too sad if it is the case that you feel like Blizzard has turned your back on you. They have for now. But let's not forget, and I want to be clear, Blizzard flip-flops its philosophies all the time.
Not every patch.
So although right now they're definitely putting the dagger in the idea of Mythic Plus being a straightforward endgame progression system if you are pushing it very, very high, that could change at any time. Let us not forget that it was only one expansion ago in Legion where their philosophy was play how you want, and we will reward you appropriately no matter how you play World of Warcraft. So if it was artifact power, it comes from everywhere. You want legendaries, it comes from everywhere. It literally comes from whatever content you enjoy. And of course, now we're going into the Shadowlands where it's play how we want you to play, do what we want you to play. We don't like the way you trade gear. We don't like the way you do this. We don't like the way you're doing that, and we want you to play this way. So they flip-flop on that.
I think, obviously, like, the problem with that, though, is, like, in Legion, the reason that worked is because of Titan Forging. Like, Titan Forging inadvertently allowed there to be, like, alternate progression paths. It's just that those progression paths weren't really very fun, and they weren't rewarding. So Titan Forging worked very well in Legion because it introduced these other progression paths, and you were getting so much gear from Mythic Plus, there was almost a guarantee that at least one item would be Titan Forged. How much Titan Forged? I don't know. But I know that if you look at somebody who did Mythic Plus all the time in Legion, they had like almost full max Titan Forged gear. How is that? Because they're running that shit non-stop. And that's what ends up happening. Content should be more natural than stopping higher numbers and everything. Yeah, I don't like that either. I agree with that. And so just going to be reforging and we're good. Yeah, I think so. Is there all craft today? Yeah, absolutely. So basically what I'm saying here is that I'm really glad about what they're doing here. I'm very, very glad. I'm super happy about this. And I think that making players, like giving people an ideal like path of progression is what they did in BC. It's what they did in Vanilla. It's what they did in Wrath. There's plenty of different ways that they did this in the past, and I think that it worked very well.
This kind of stuff a lot. Sadly, it would be nice to be consistent, but they're trying to move the pendulum back. That's gonna have some pains with it.
People are gonna get pissed.
They went too far with quantity of loot and lower quality, and now they want to swing it back, so way less quantity.
I'll read one comment here. Sorry. What do you mean the current Mythic Plus system is making the game worse? What do you want from the game is not better for the game. It's better for the game from your perspective. Not all of us have the time to progress through raid. We shouldn't be forced into a raiding guild. Well, you're not. You're just not going to get as much gear. Yeah, you're not going to get as much gear. Because it's just like logistically it's so much harder to make a raid. Like you have to get 20 people to the raid. That's a huge fucking problem. That's a massive time investment. And anybody that says it's not, and anybody that says it's not a massive like logistical like challenge has never done it before. It's a big deal. Yes, of course.
But higher quality, hopefully. Now, there are some other good things that have come from this.
Same problem with RBGs and why they're dead.
It seems very apparent now, looking at the item levels of things, that they're going to really squash down the leaps we made on item gearing inflation over the course of an expansion.
Really?
I really hope they stick with this, because it has a number of positives that also turns this into a positive, even if you feel bad about it right now.
What?
Gear inflation is a big problem. A character that has just hit level 120 right now in BFA compared to a geared character who is doing Mythic Nyalotha, for example, or very high Mythic Plus and has been doing for a while, is astronomical. It's like they're 5 expansions behind or something crazy like that. It's absolutely insane. So squashing that down changes it from starting off with a 1,000 damage Chaos Bolt at the start of the expansion to 60,000 or 100,000 by the end of the expansion, and then them having to do mega number squishes. It's also a good thing. Players should feel like they're getting more powerful. We all agree with that. But it doesn't need to be such a giant leap every time in order to feel it. Incremental increases are totally fine, and they worked for a decade or so in this game where we didn't have giant leaps all the time. So it's nice to see they're going back with that. The other effect of this is if you are a heroic raider or a mythic raider, or somebody who does farm high-end Mythic Plus over the course of Season 1, ideally, this lower item level gearing inflation should mean that all your efforts aren't instantaneously wiped out from one day to another when the new season starts.
Yes, dude. That is the dumbest fucking shit, man. That is 100% the dumbest fucking shit. Like, the fact that whenever a patch comes out, you're replacing your mythic raid gear with world quest epics? Give me a fucking break. Like, that's so trash, man. Like, I really hope they fix that. I really hope they fix that. Like, that's just so awful. And I think that making the gear more relevant and like stopping the item level inflation is super important for them to do. Because right now, like in BFA, every single tier has gone up by 15 item levels. 15 fucking item levels. I think seasons in WoW should be a thing. And you know what I think they should be called? Expansions. We already have them. I don't want expansions inside of expansions. Every fucking patch is a new expansion. And the funniest fucking thing about it is that I said this like 100 times, right? Blizzard literally play tested this in vanilla whenever they introduced Nax, and nobody wanted to put in the effort to do Nax because they knew BC was going to come out and all their shit would get replaced. So they make the same mistake they did in vanilla WoW every 5 months. It's too much, man. It's too fucking much. I think this is a very good change. I'm glad Blizzard is doing this. What's the fix, though? What do you mean, what's the fix? You get rid of 1 or 2 raid difficulties, and then you make the difference between the gear between the raid difficulties smaller. Like, it's a pretty fucking simple fix.
Far bigger of a problem, at least in my eyes and the eyes of many, in Battle for Azeroth, is that you could farm the hardest content in this game, be it in Mythic Plus or Extreme High-End Arena or Extreme Mythic Plus and raiding, and then on Wednesday, your rewards were equal to a world quest, which was something that happened repeatedly in BFA and killed a lot of the soul of people wanting to farm.
Brilliant insight.
Because a lot of people are entirely motivated by the pursuit of gear, and having their gear and their efforts completely invalidated from one day to another isn't fun. It would be very, very nice if the gear I acquire and the gear you guys acquire in the previous season makes sense going into the next season, and having lower and lower increments of jumping and gear strength should help with that. Which means this is really just a start of Shadowlands issue for only some people. Does it kill the fun for some people? Yes, absolutely. I loved gearing up my character or going into Mythic Plus and gearing it up in those first few days when it was relevant and then helping my team out. I also enjoyed that the bluster of let's get in there, let's get the gearing your character from fresh is a really exciting time. A lot of that is now dead. That's just not something.
I really agree with that a lot too. I think that the beginning of expansion hustle of like trying to get all the gear and figuring out, oh, I can do this PvP thing to get this pair of bracers and stuff, and like getting all this stuff. I love that shit. Let's see, I'll read this real quick. Why does a Mythic Raider and BFA have a fighting chance for not doing up-to-date content? It's unfair. Start of expansion is supposed to be fresh. Oh my god. What do you mean? I was talking about patches, not expansions.
That's super relevant. You're going to do it a bit, but you're going to replace it extremely quickly if you are able to do heroic raiding and above, and the consequences of that we've already talked about. Overall, it's probably for the better, I think. I feel really bad for the guys who really wanted Mythic Plus to be its own pathway and its own course. You could still get Mythic Raid quality gear from Mythic Plus, so it's not all bad, but if you wanted it to be an exclusive, don't have to raid, that's probably not going to happen for a long time. But for the rest...
I agree with that. I think that any sort of PvE activity you should be semi-expected to do if you want to get as good a gear as possible. So, like, for example, if you want to be a good raider, I think you should have to do a little bit of Mythic Plus. If you want to be a good if you want to do a good Mythic Plus player, you should have to expect to do a little bit of raiding. Like, that's just what makes sense to me. And I think it's good for the game for there not to just be, like, these individual little things that's all you do. I think that's a huge fucking problem. I don't like that at all. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues now is that, like, you'll have like one system. Like, I think Azerite is like a really good example of this. So, like, Azerite was just the best in islands, and everybody just got basically forced and pigeonholed into doing islands because the expectations got set that high. I think that's exactly what will happen with other things like that in Shadowlands if they don't make changes like they're doing.
Of us, it's going to be a mindset thing. There will be people who heroic raid, which encompasses a huge amount of the player base, even puggers, who now look at Mythic Plus as dead content beyond their one weekly. Those raiders are now, or those players are now going to go into Mythic Plus knowing there's no reward for them at the end. Especially after a couple of weeks once they've started to gather some gear, and be a little salty that they now have a 45-minute period or 25-minute period where they know there's no reward and the reward comes later on, and they're not interested in certainly doing it multiple times to increase their chances in the weekly guild vault when it's just a lot of time investment with no immediate satisfaction. And I think also a lot of people who only gear up through Mythic Plus are going to be very dissatisfied that they're only getting one item, but I'm hoping there'll be a mindset change there if they're more excited about getting that item. If they don't have it happen to them too.
They're not going to get excited about it. They're mad about it, because I guarantee you they're probably mad about it. Because the issue is that people don't look at it from like the longitudinal perspective, you know? And that's what I really think they need to do. I'm a big fan of that. Is like you just look at it from the larger perspective of, okay, well, I'm going to be able to get 3 pieces of gear out of my chest per week, or 3 options. I get 1 piece of gear, but I have 3 chances of gear. That, in the long run, is a much better perspective and a much better long-term solution than what they have now. Giving you a bunch of shitty gear at the beginning is not as good as giving you more options for good gear towards the end. That's what I think.
Often, but history tells us there are some players out there who will never get an item from Mythic Plus for weeks because of the nature of this system. That is going to happen, and I'm sure there'll be an outcry at that point. It's an interesting system. We'll see how well the community adapts to this idea of way less items, but more targeted items via the weekly cache, and hopefully items that last a long time, because those are the two things that have been missing in BFA.
That is a big trope.
Everything was replaceable. Everything happened all very quickly. Now it's going to be everything happens much slower, but everything lasts much longer. If that's what we get out of this,
I will be so happy.
2 thumbs up from me. So those are things to be aware of. Everything is linked down below.
1, 2,
and I will see you tomorrow.
3.
Hopefully we'll get this.
I will be so fucking happy.
Bye-bye.
That would be great to fucking hear. I would be so goddamn happy. It's gonna be great. This is way better. Yeah, I think it's a massive fucking improvement. And obviously, I'll link you guys the video so you guys can take a look at it and get an idea of what's pretty much going on here. There you go. And retail WoW is so garbage. Okay, classic Andy. Let me read the rest of these. I see that do you do poison video in the thumbnail? I don't know what the fuck that is. I looked at my account and haven't played since May. This is the longest that I've gone without playing this game without being mad at it. I just lost my feeling of reward for my time spent and got bored. Well, that's basically it. Is because if you have that kind of stuff, right? Blue post on Wowhead called test. Okay, I'll look at the Wowhead thing, but I want to talk about what this guy said just for a second. So in my opinion, I think a lot of people have felt like they're not really being rewarded of what they're doing. That's pretty much the biggest concern that I think the game has, is that people don't feel like the time that they're investing into the game pays off. Like, that's ultimately what it comes down to. The time that they invest in the game, they don't feel is worth it. And how could you possibly feel like the time that you're spending in the game is worth it whenever you know for a fact that the second the new patch comes out, every Billy, Jimmy, and Karen is going to be able to get the exact same crit haste ring that you had out of your Mythic raid with a socket, by the way, just from doing a Tortolan world quest. Does that sound good? No, it fucking doesn't. Does that make you feel like a winner? No, it fucking doesn't. That's why I've always said that mounts are the true end game in WoW. If you have Invincible today, you will have it 5 years from today. It might be easier to get, but you will still fucking have it. Gear comes and goes, but mounts are forever. That's what I've always said. That is the true metagame of WoW. It transcends expansions. It transcends patches. It transcends everything. I think this Preach video is great. I really agree with all of his opinions in the video. I think it's a massive improvement. I think that the weekly cache here is a massive improvement on what we had before. I think making the game less reliant on Mythic Plus is also a very good thing. I don't think Mythic Plus is necessarily a... I don't think that the process of doing Mythic Plus is really fun. Like, I don't think that, for example, like if you compare doing a raid once a week that you can look forward to repeating the exact same dungeon you've done for the entire expansion, except for this time it's slightly harder and there's 2 more annoying things that are going to happen to you. Like, this does not necessarily fill me with excitement. Like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And this is, like, of course, my personal opinion, but I think that most people feel this way. I do. I feel like most people feel this way. And I would say in general, I think that that the way Mythic Plus is set up right now is it's kind of boring, right? Of course. But this is definitely an improvement on the long-term longevity of progression on Mythic Plus even too, because you're able to get 3 pieces of gear. Yeah, rating's boring. It's the same thing every week. Yeah, it is, but you can only do it once a week, so you don't burn yourself out as easy. You don't need gear in the long term. What good is there in getting best in slot trinket 2 months after you complete the content? Well, because you want a victory lap. Like, if you don't understand why somebody wants to get their best in slot in a game, then I don't think they can explain it to you. That's really the truth. Like, I don't think they can explain it to you if you don't just understand that. And less gear is better, makes gear like it was in Classic. I think that it's worth trying. I definitely think so. And I don't know, man. Like, again, I think that there's so many things about Shadowlands that I'm very positive about. I think the only thing that I'm actually negative about is Covenants. I think everything else besides that, I'm very happy about it. I mean, like, I like the story. I like the zones. I like the gearing. I like the gear. I like the cosmetics in the area. I like the mounts. I like almost everything. Like, scaling sucks. Yeah, you're right about that. Scaling does suck a big fucking dick. I like Torghast. I'm looking forward to that. Scarcity directly translates to value. Usually it does. Not always, but usually it does.